Hi guys, welcome back to another podcast on MMA.I, another podcast on the March of Silva MMA show. And oh my god, we get to talk about what happened on the weekend. UFC 270 went down, and there's a lot to talk about, isn't there, Oscar?
Yes, there is. There's so many storylines coming out of this pay-per-view, just like there was going into it. We had a lot of debuting fighters on here, and a lot of people criticized the card because of it, but those guys and girls, had really entertaining performances, and I feel like this is one of those cards that might get left out of the best of the year conversation, but I'm sure I will remember, and I'm sure you will as well.
Yeah, it was a fantastic card, and obviously we had the two main of the title fights at the top. But I feel like every fight on this one delivered, and there was action non-stop.
Yeah, I don't think you can really say there was a boring fight on this card. Everybody really did their best out there, and we'll start right off with the main event. This was not exactly what we expected from either guy in the first two rounds. It was going like I thought it would. Cyril Gane was evading the big bombs from Ngannou, but it was very clear to me that Francis is not moving around like he usually does. His knee was compromised, particularly his MCL and his ACL, and it was clear to us when we saw those knee sleeves that something was wrong, and it gave me more confidence in my pick by going with Cyril, but Cyril Gane simply did not have the skills on the ground to beat Francis Ngannou. Coming into this, a lot of people actually gave the grappling advantage to Cyril Gane, but it honestly didn't matter because Francis Ngannou has that brute strength that he can just power you down and keep you there. And that's what he did against Cyril Gane. Cyril Gane had never been taken down in his UFC career. He had never even been on his back for a second. And Francis was the one to expose him. I thought it would be a guy like Stipe or Curtis Blades that would test Cyril Gane's grappling, but it was Francis. And that's so impressive because Francis was down 2 rounds, and we both acknowledge that if Francis wins this, he's going to win early and by finish. But Francis showed he had another tool in his toolbox, and he did it very impressively and without a knockout. The first decision win of his career. What did you make of it?
Francis surprised me in this fight. Not only did he surprise me because what we've seen in the past from Ngannou is he's got that that power in his right hand. We've seen it, but have we seen him mix it up? And we haven't. But in this fight we really see him mix it up, do things that we haven't seen in the past. I feel like that Stipe loss was the best thing that's ever happened to Ngannou because now he relied on his wrestling in this fight, which is incredible. If you're thinking about Ngannou that we saw about 3 years ago when he's knocking everyone out, you're thinking there's no way this guy wants to go in grappling. And we saw Ngannou grapple Gane and rely on the grappling. The grappling in this fight won Ngannou the fight. It ultimately got him over on the line. In the first 2 rounds, as you mentioned, Ngannou was struggling a little bit. Gane was too quick, too sharp, too technical for him. But as soon as it got to the ground, it was just... I thought Gane was the better, grappler, and I believe he still is, but it's just the brute, as you mentioned, the brute strength of Ngannou. The knee bar, I feel like the knee bar could have been, executed a little bit better from Gane, and I feel like Gane was the first one to shoot as well, but I can't remember.
I believe he was, but as we mentioned, Francis is just so strong. The guy is so hard to take down. That's why Stipe Miocic was unable to finish him the first time around because Stipe himself was very tired from grappling. I feel like the biggest moment of this fight was Francis's first takedown. He caught that kick and he basically body slammed him on the floor. That was such a crazy moment. And Francis realized that Cyril Gane could not get up, and he continued to do it, and that won him the fight. But don't get me wrong, in that 5th round, Cyril Gane, he got that first takedown. And I was thinking Cyril Gane might have sealed this fight with that takedown because Francis's get-up game is proving to be pretty untrustworthy. But Cyril Gane made a critical error. He tried to leg lock a guy who literally has a tree trunk for a leg. So that was just a bad move, and Francis was able to get on top as a result. And that one mistake from Gane cost him the fight, and it's really unfortunate because man, this was a real learning experience for Cyril Gane, but Yeah, that one mistake cost him. And Francis really overcame a lot heading into this fight. There was so much drama going on outside. And we thought he was dealing with a lot without even knowing about the injury. And that just adds to the list of challenges he was dealing with. And he overcame it. And I really applaud him for that. This is his first successful title defense. And I feel like it may be his last in the UFC, because not only is he going to have surgery on that knee, which would put him out a minimum of 6 months, he's also very unhappy with his contract with the UFC. And he's asking to fight Tyson Fury, and the UFC's not having it. So it appears to me that Francis will just sit out for the rest of the year, and he will eventually be stripped, and he'll just box Tyson Fury in 2023.
Yeah, by December of this year, if Ngannou don't fight by December of this year, then he's officially not a UFC fighter. His contract will run out, and as you mentioned there, I see the same as well. I feel like the next step for Ngannou now is that big payday over in boxing. We were talking about it before the show, and I feel like if you're Ngannou, where he's came from, the roots, from Africa, coming over to to France, and he said it has always been a dream for him to box, but his coach led in a different path. And that might have been good for him, because the path is now going to lead him to, he's going to jump into boxing, and he's not going to have to take 10 fights against 10 nobodies. He's just going to jump in there with the big ones at the top. So if you look at it like that, he's just took another avenue, but now he's going to jump into boxing with the elite heavyweights at the top. And will he get on? We don't know. We're going to have to find out. You're going to have to pay the money.
Yeah. By the way, this is not just Twitter talk from Tyson Fury. His management has reached out to Francis's management. This is very serious stuff from Tyson Fury, because let's be honest, Francis is a bigger name than almost anybody in boxing at the moment. I guess you could say he's a comparable name to Wilder, Joshua, maybe Usyk, but yeah, Francis is one of the most popular heavyweight combat sports athletes out there right now. So, and let's be honest, kind of an easy matchup for Tyson Fury if he can avoid the power. I feel like it would be a pretty easy night for Tyson if he was the power, of course.
Well, we talked what's next for Ngannou, but if we look on the other side, the blue corner, what's next for Gane? I feel like the logical option, if I'm the UFC, I'm booking him against Curtis Blades. And I know that might be a bad matchup for Gane, but I feel like he needs that challenge with the wrestling now.
Yeah, you have the same mindset as John Anik. I was just listening to the Anik and Florian podcast, which I'm in the internship sweepstakes for. And John Anik said that's the matchup for Gane. He wants to see Gane's wrestling challenged in. It already was challenged in. We saw that it just really wasn't great. I feel like that's an awful matchup for him. And I would probably bet a sizable amount on Curtis in that fight. But a lot of cool options for Gane out there. I feel like you could definitely throw him in there with the winner or the lose. I feel like Marcin Tybura might be the fight. Win or lose
the
against Jerzy Rosenstrike.
The winner of Volkov Aspinall.
Oh, yeah, or Tom Aspinall, win or lose, whatever. But a lot of cool matchups for Cyril Gane out there. I don't really like to matchmake for losers, because you never really know how long they're going to want to get back in there. And you just got to credit Cyril Gane for, even though he lost, he didn't need any bombs, really. Like, he hit some solid punches, but he didn't get rocked by anything. That's very hard to do against Francis.
Yeah, he's too elusive. He was always out of the pocket. If he kept this fight on the feet, no doubt that would have went his way.
Yeah, 100%. My breakdown of this fight was correct, but I had no knowledge that Francis had a plan B if it didn't work out on the feet. So that was the real game changer there. And yeah, those you have to credit those coaches at Extreme Couture, Dewey Cooper and Eric Nixick. They really made Francis a serviceable grappler.
Yeah, and credit to Eric Nixick and Extreme Couture, but credit to Henry Cejudo and the team over at that Fight Ready. They've changed Deiveson Figueiredo.
Yeah, Deiveson Figueiredo has never been this calculated in any fight. They worked for 12 weeks. They worked on distance management here, and he was In other fights, he would have thrown way more strikes, but in this one, he knew if he was going to throw, he would get countered, and he didn't throw as many. Therefore, he didn't get countered as much. And that was a big deal here. And he scored 3 knockdowns in this fight. The reason I picked Davison in this fight was because he was not doing the same thing he did last time. He didn't go to the same camp. He didn't train in the same country. He wasn't comfortable at home with his family. He moved to another country with a new gym, with a former training partner, a Brandon Moreno, and he went out there and fought as a different fighter, and I could not be more impressed. And not only that, but I feel like a lot of people had recency bias with Davison after he got dominated last time around. It was just an awful weight cut for him. The guy was crying after he made weight. This time around, he was running up the steps with confidence. He was never in better shape. And that was a real difference maker here. And at the end of the day, he just hits harder than Brandon. These guys are very even, but when you have a power edge, it's simply going to matter more in the eyes of the judges. And that's what was the difference maker here. I actually only scored 1 round for Brandon. A lot of people thought Brandon won. I only scored 1 round for Brandon. I simply felt that Davison was landing the bigger strikes all the way through.
Yeah, I scored it for 2 rounds for Moreno. I thought the first one was Moreno, and the second one I thought was the close round, or was it the other way around? I can't really remember. But I in the 5th round, I thought it was 2-2, and whoever wins this round gets the win. And I thought Davison Figueiredo did enough. In my opinion, he was calculated. The thing is though, when Moreno was touching Figueiredo, it was seeming to bother him in this fight. It looked like he was, every time he got clipped, he was backing away. He looked like he was scared of, the Moreno. If Moreno brought more pressure in this fight, who knows what could have happened. But I feel like the leg kicks in this fight from Figueiredo, how calculated he was. He wasn't throwing every strike with a reckless abandonment. He was picking his shots, and that ultimately won him the fight. He picked his shots perfectly and to perfection, just broke down Moreno. And them leg kicks early on and later, just continuing on, it added up, and I feel like that was the key to winning in this fight. And obviously, as you mentioned, how ready he came into this fight. He was on weight. I think they were talking about a day before, 124 pounds. He was on weight. He was ready, and he ran up to the scales. When have we ever seen Davison Figueiredo run to the scales? Never.
Yeah, Davison, honestly, probably never looked better. Davison, he was very clearly inspired by Henry Cejudo. If I feel like if you got a guy that fights at Fight Ready MMA fighting in a big pay-per-view fight, you have to watch the countdown shows because they kind of spoil things. I remember when Zhang Wei Li was preparing for Rose, you see Cejudo teaching her the same wrestling techniques she used in the rematch against Rose. And in this fight, on the countdown, they watched Cejudo's fight against, who was it, Dominic Cruz, and Cejudo had a leg kick heavy game plan against him. And what do we see from Figueiredo here? He had a leg kick heavy game plan here, and it made all the difference in this fight. And yeah, at the end of the day, Davison had the power edge, and a lot of people are saying they don't know who the better fighter is. I kind of feel comfortable saying Davison is the better fighter now, but I would like to see the tetralogy. That's apparently the term for the 4th fight. I feel like this one makes sense because the first one was a draw.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a 4th fight. We're going to see that one, and I feel like it's going to be 4 fights in a row as well. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure that it'll be right away because we do have Askarov and Car France waiting in the wings, but right after that, it'll probably happen, assuming Moreno gets a win in the meantime. And we'll talk about Michel Pereira's win over Andre Fialho by unanimous decision. Had it not been for that co-main event, which was a spectacular fight, this would have been the fight of the night probably. Michel Pereira put on a show, as he always does. But this time around, we saw very obvious improvements in his gas tank and volume in particular. Pereira, he was struggling in that first round. And usually the first round is his best round of the fight because with all those explosive movements, he tends to slow down. But that was not the case here. Pereira changed his approach in the second round, and he started pressuring Fialho, and he really hurt him on several occasions. I feel like maybe he might have put him away had he not attempted all those flying knees. But nonetheless, very impressive by Michel Pereira here. Very impressed by Fialho here, too. Fialho has beaten 2 UFC vets by knockout already. And he was very competitive all the way through in this fight. So, yeah, Fialho has legit power. And I feel like he can be a guy that sticks around the welterweight division for a very long time.
Yeah, stepping in short notice as well. You got to give him credits. Was it 10 days? I believe he had for the fight.
Yeah, something along those lines. Muslim Salikov had a pull out, and we got Fialho here, and it made for even more exciting fight.
Yeah, in that, as you mentioned, in that first round, Andre Fialho was looking good. He was neutralizing Michel Pereira, and I feel like eventually he ran out of gas. He got a little bit tired, and fair dues. He's fighting a very tough opponent in Michel Pereira. He's always moving. He's always his bicycle, and you can't really catch him because he's always in, he's always out. He's a very tricky fighter. Michel Pereira put his game plan to perfection in that second and third round. The first round was tough. Maybe he was getting into it, getting warmed up, feeling him out. But that second and third round, he looked good.
Yeah, I really was impressed by Pereira here because I thought he was gonna lose the fight as soon as I saw him not doing well in the first round, but Michel Pereira really proved something to me there in victory, and Said Nurmagomedov also proved something to me in victory. I really saw him as having a weakness in the ground in this fight in particular because Stamen is such a good wrestler. But Said Nurmagomedov snatched his neck up in 47 seconds and made him tap. This was so impressive because as you saw early in the fight, Said has a kickboxing approach, unlike most guys from Dagestan. And I thought that Stamen would catch those kicks and get the takedowns. He didn't get a single takedown. He got his neck snatched in under a minute. That is very impressive because Cody Stamen has been a guy who's stuck around the top 15 for a very long time, and Said is on his way up, hasn't been as active as he's wanted to, and man, did he make a statement here, and he got a performance of the night bonus for it too.
That's a tricky one to say. Statement and statement. That was a little bit of a tongue twister. But yeah, as you mentioned, Said looked phenomenal. And I think it took about 10 seconds from Cody to realize, yeah, the fight is probably where I want to, the ground is probably where I want to go. Said opened up with a spinning back kick as well. It was, this guy's incredible on the feet. And I feel like guys are going to realize how good he is when they fight him because they've got that. He's got that Nurmagomedov name, and you think, oh, I'm fighting a wrestler, but this guy, he can strike. It's incredible. He's got a really good future. Didn't break into the rankings. I thought he might maybe got into that 15-14 rank, but the UFC it's that bantamweight division. It's probably the deepest division that we have in the UFC, so it's going to be tough to break into it. But no doubt, next fight is going to be a top 15, top 10 opponent. It has to be now.
Yeah, I feel like the next opponent for him should be the number 15 bantamweight contender in the world, Rafael Sensal. Sensal hasn't won a fight in years. I feel like that would definitely be a passing the torch moment because Said, it really looks like he's ready for these top contenders. He was unable to overcome Raoni Barcelos when they fought. I feel like if they fought now, he beats Raoni Barcelos. So I feel like in the time away, Nurmagomedov has made the improvements, and I think he's ready for the ranked opponents.
100%, I agree. As you were talking about, it's sad to see Cody Stamen, lose. He's a phenomenal fighter, great wrestler. But on the skid that he's on, he's probably the wrong matchup. So I'd like to see him get back into the winning column. But at bantamweight, there's a lot of matchups out there for him outside the ranks as well.
Yeah, sure. This weight class, you really can't go wrong with many of these matchups. It's so good. The top 30 of this division is absolutely insane.
Yeah, 100%. And then we move on to a welterweight fight between Morales and Giles. And it only took a round for Morales to put out Giles in the first round. It was a phenomenal punch. He set out well. He crafted it. He picked his punches and he put away his man. I was very impressed. I did miss the first couple of minutes for this fight because I was making some food, but I know Oscar didn't.
Yeah, I actually saw this in the theater, and the whole theater's jaw dropped when Trevin Giles put Michael Morales on his butt with a knockdown. Was it a knockdown? I know for a fact he rocked him, and Morales did go down, but it was not scored a knockdown. But I thought it was a knockdown in the moment But nonetheless, I thought it was going Giles' way until Michael Morales started to get that clinch time, started to beat him up against the cage. And then once they were in free space, Michael Morales cracked him. And let's not forget, this was Giles' welterweight debut. And it appears his chin is not what it is at middleweight here. He could not take that bomb, and he went away in 4 minutes. And Giles was clearly upset after that. But yeah, you have to be impressed with Michael Morales, because this guy is only 22 and he's out here starching UFC vets in the first round. That's very hard to do. And I feel like with his size, he's going to go very far in this division. I feel like the next opponent for him should be the loser of Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Carlston Harris. It's probably, let's be honest, that's kind of a gimme fight for Rakhmonov. So I feel like Carlston Harris is he's 36. He's got a really advanced ground game. I feel like that'd be a really good test for Morales.
100%, I agree. I'd like to see Charles stay at 170. I feel like his frame, his physique has never looked better at 170 pounds. But as you mentioned, maybe the chin not being able to hold up 170 pounds. But a chin that is be able to hold up is Ronnie Barcelos and Victor Henry. They put on a show, the final prelim of the final prelim of the card. This was meant to be Ilia Tupia versus Charles Jourdain. We really missed a good fight with that one falling through. Was it on the day or the day before? Oh my god, we got robbed. We got robbed.
Well, why'd you have to remind me of these cancellations? This fight card was so much better like 2 weeks ago than it ended up being on paper, at least. But nonetheless, this was probably better than that fight was going to be anyway. This was such an incredible fight because we picked Raoni Barcelos here. We said he was better in every facet of the game. We kind of wrote off Victor Henry, but we did acknowledge that Victor Henry was very well-rounded. He hit very hard, and he had a great record, and he has a win over Kyler Phillips. But we really didn't think he would go out there and outwork Barcelos in the manner that he did. He had one of the highest outputs of any bantamweight in UFC history. This guy went out there and really put a beating on Raoni Barcelos. Did I agree with the 30-27? Not exactly. I feel like you could have at least given a round to Barcelos, but man, Henry really put on a show here. And this was a straight up war. And I feel like people are going to forget about this when it comes to like fight of the year conversation. But man, this is one of my favorite fights of the year so far. Victor Henry, his stock rose infinitely after this. And he's definitely in line for maybe a top 15 opponent or somebody just out of the top 15.
His stock rose just stepping in to take the fight. He's making his UFC debut, so you know he's putting himself out there on the market and beating a guy like Barcelos, who, as we were talking about a few years ago, was in his prime, could have fought in the top 10, top 5. He was really up there, and we talked about it before the show. We feel like he's wasted his prime a little bit, you know, being inactive, not being able to fight. But you know, Victor Henry, you know, he put himself on the map, and my goodness, he looked absolutely amazing. His boxing is crisp. It's beautiful. And he outboxing a guy like Ronnie Barcelos. He's phenomenal. Barcelos is phenomenal at everything he does. He's great at mixing it up. And Victor Henry really shut him down in this fight. It's a fantastic performance. And I'm a fan of his work.
Yeah, the only criticism I had of Barcelos was sometimes he can be low output. And he was low output on the wrong night against the wrong opponent. And that was Victor Henry here. Victor Henry, he didn't get a bonus here, but I definitely thought he was one of the standouts of the entire card here. And man, there was three fights could have easily gotten the fight on that bonus, and unfortunately, this one missed out on it. But spectacular fight from both men. And moving on to somebody who, in my opinion, got robbed of a performance bonus. Because if you want to talk about flawless performances, this is basically what this guy had out here. Jack Della Maddalena fought the debuting Pete Rodriguez. Both guys were actually debutants, but Della Maddalena, of course, had already fought on the Contender Series against Kamaru Usman's former sparring partner, Ange Lusa, and he lit him up for 3 rounds, and he lit up Pete Rodriguez here. Pete Rodriguez didn't have the greatest head movement. He was always there to be hit, and eventually Della Maddalena knocked him down and got vicious ground and pound going, and the ref waved it off. This was a really, really impressive performance by Della Maddalena here, and I think he's definitely primed to fight a guy like Worley Alves. That was his original opponent on this card, and I'm even more confident that he wins the fight now after this performance.
Yeah, it was a fantastic showing from Melo Mandarella. Oh, I'm so bad at names. Melo Mandarella. Fantastic, as you mentioned there. We talked about this fight. We said Pete Rodriguez probably wasn't ready for the UFC yet, and I feel like this solidified it.
Yeah, we both said this guy was only getting first round finishes in Icon FC against subpar competition. I didn't think he was UFC ready, but he was probably there and on weight. That's probably why he got the opportunity. And yeah, I don't think he's going to be in the UFC too long. He's clearly inexperienced here, and Della Maddalena really exposed him, and as he should have. I believe he was a 3-1 favorite, and he was my most confident pick on the card, and he did what I expected him to win. Yeah,
and a guy that we also expected to win. Well, I picked Tony Gravely. I feel like you might have picked Oliveira in this one, but the wrestling of Tony Gravely, we talked about it before the show last week. Tony Gravely, when it comes to wrestling at bantamweight, there's probably no one better than that.
Tony Gravely is he's the real deal when it comes to wrestling. What I say, he's the greatest wrestler. No, I would say that probably belongs to Merab Dvalishvili. The guy is a savage. But Tony Gravely is definitely up there. And man, Simon Oliveira, what a terrible game plan. Let's be honest. This guy jumped for a guillotine in with every opportunity that there was. He probably looked at Tony Gravely's losses, and he saw that 5 of them were by submission. So he was like, this guy probably doesn't have great submission defense. And Tony Gravely had good submission defense on this night. And Oliveira just did not make the adjustments necessary to win the fight. In that third round, he was having a little more success in the striking realm because Gravely, of course, he did tire a little bit, but it was too little too late. And Gravely, he accrued over 11 minutes of control time here. That's over 2 total rounds of control time here. That shows you how dominant Tony Gravely was. And yeah, Simon, he got some stuff to work on. But Tony Gravely, if he stays this consistent, he can go pretty far in this division. And I feel like he should be fighting Raoni Barcelos next, a guy who just lost on this card. I feel like that would be a very entertaining fight, Tony Gravely versus Raoni Barcelos. Because if Barcelos is on the decline that I believe he is, he would lose that fight. But yeah, that'd be a very good test for both guys.
Yeah, I just quickly had to change the actual title of the stream. I realized it was UFC 267. I'm still stuck in the past. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, but I just changed to UFC. Yeah, I'm done. I've changed it to UFC 270. But yeah, a phenomenal game plan from Tony Gravely, and an even worse game plan from Simon Oliveira. But Gravely put his game plan to perfection and did what he needed to do in this fight, and he got the win. A fantastic win for him. It'll be interesting to see where he goes next. Maybe as you were talking about that Ronnie Barcelos fight, that would be a good fight. But I'm kind of thinking that you don't like Ronnie Barcelos because it's a very dangerous matchup.
I would actually pick Raoni Barcelos by knockout in that fight, but if he's not on his A game, Gravely can definitely outgrind him that night.
Well, yeah, let's talk about outgrinding. I feel like this is the perfect topic to talk about in this one. I feel like Matt Frevola just came to throw volume. I feel like Matt Frevola came with the mentality of kill or be killed in this one. It was ridiculous. This was a wild fight.
Yeah, Matt Frevola knew what he was up against in this fight. He was up against an undefeated Mexican boxer in this fight, and that's why he actually trained a lot of boxing heading into this fight with Ray Longo, and it really paid off here. Valdez, his record really doesn't tell you about the caliber of fighter he is. It's very clear to me that Valdez is kind of just a rock'em sock'em robots kind of guy, and that's really not going to get you very far. And I thought he had the potential to knock out Frevola here. And I actually thought Frevola, if he would win this, he would outlast him past the first round. And start using his grappling, but that wasn't the case here. Frivola went out here to destroy Valdez, and that's what he did. He actually, I believe he tied or broke the record for most knockdowns in a single round. Not only did he do it in a single round, he did it in 3 minutes and 15 seconds. I don't know what the referee Mike Beltran was thinking, but he gave every chance possible for Valdez to stay in this fight. And I feel like he let him stay in there longer than he should have, because he sustained a vicious beating by the hands of Steamroller Frivola. And that's what he did out there. He steamrolled Valdez. And I felt like he was fighting for his job heading into this fight. And he definitely saved it here. And in my opinion, also robbed of a bonus.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like you put it perfectly there. I feel like Matt Frivola is like a round one or bust. He came into this one thinking, I need to get him out in the round one to kind of secure me another contract. He put on an entertaining fight, got the knockout. Coming into this fight, he was on a 2-fight losing streak. And if he wanted to get re-signed, a 3-fight losing streak on the end of the contract, it wasn't going to get you re-signed. And I feel like he's put himself into a good position because he's off the back of a win. He's off the back of an entertaining fight. And I feel like the UFC might re-sign him, but I feel like it's a very slim chance. You might have to fight elsewhere to come back, maybe.
I really disagree. When you put on a beating like this, and even in losses, he's had really entertaining fights. I feel like Frivola should be here to stay after a performance like this, beating a 10-0 guy. But yeah, Frivola, his next opponent, I think you're going to like the matchup. I think he should fight Paddy Pimblett, win or lose, against Kazula Vargas.
It's a good one. I like that. Have we seen it? We've seen in this fight, Frivola can, we before the event last week, we talked about how Frivola might get knocked out, and but he kind of proved to us in this, he can take some shots.
Yeah, I don't know if he can take Paddy Pimblett's shots, which is why I feel like the UFC giving Paddy Pimblett Kazula Vargas, it kind of lets us know the kind of trajectory they want to go with Paddy. They kind of want to go the Sugar Sean route, and I feel like Frivola can't eat those punches from Paddy Pimblett if he throws them. And on the ground, I think Paddy Pimblett finishes him as well. So I feel like that would be a really nice showcase for Paddy Pimblett.
Yeah, and Oscar Valdez was the first teammate of Moreno to lose, but no, the second teammate for Moreno to lose. And the first one was Gomez Suarez. She lost against Vanessa Dominopoulos in the first round via submission. I feel like when you see your teammates lose, the mentality from Moreno was probably not great going into the fight because you've just seen your teammates lose. And do you reckon that put up a little bit of, a mentality block into Moreno?
I'm not entirely sure that affected him. Moreno, heading into the fight, I definitely saw concern on his face. I've never seen Moreno walk out that intensely. I don't know if I didn't know if it was good or bad going into the fight, but I feel like Moreno fought very well. He fought very well in that fight. And I don't know if that affected him, but this is a very unfortunate situation for Gomez Suarez. I'm pretty sure she's going to get cut after this. She's got an armbarred twice in the first round by pretty low-level fighters. It's not like she fought some absolute killer and she can get a pass. I don't know if she can get a pass for this, especially after she had Demopoulos seeing stars with a tremendous cross. She put Demopoulos down, and she was landing devastating ground pound. By the way, for a strawweight, Gomez Suarez hits like a truck. This is very impressive power we saw on display, but it didn't matter because she didn't have the best fight IQ. She went right into the guard of Demopoulos, who is traditionally a grappler, has a lot of submissions on the record, even in inverted triangle, and she allowed Gomez Suarez has pretty long arms, and Demopoulos was able to snatch one up and get the submission here. Yeah, we said this was a pick-em fight, and this is what we meant. We knew Gomez Suarez was the better striker. We knew Demopoulos was the better grappler here, and I didn't think Demopoulos would have the chops to get it to the ground, but it was Gomez Suarez who took it to the ground, and she paid for it.
Yeah, she definitely paid the price. As you talked about low IQ, Gomez Suarez jumped into that guard and didn't think of the consequences that might happen, and eventually she got tapped out by an elbow, which I feel like she might have learned from her last fight. That these fighters are better on the ground, try and get up as soon as quick as possible, and she got the knockdown. She landed a few elbows, but it was clear and evident that she weren't going to put her out, so she should have stepped up and got the fight back to the feet. And as you talked about, her power is incredible. 115 pounds. It's frightening, but she just her IQ really, her IQ cost her in this fight. I feel like if she stepped up, started striking again, I feel like we'll be talking about a fantastic knockout right now.
Yeah, I got a feeling this is going to be a nominee for a comeback of the year. This was crazy. I didn't think Demopoulos was going to recover that from that, and she did, and went on to have an exciting post-fight interview with Joe Rogan. That was really fun. And
yeah, I liked it. I love it when she jumps on the arms of Joe Rogan. That was that was cool.
That was a scene out there. And we'll start with the opener of the card. This was actually a more entertaining fight than a lot of people thought it would have been. Jazz Davicius beat Kay Hansen by unanimous decision. Man, am I upset that I changed my pick. I told you guys on this show this past week that I'm not afraid to change my pick. And I changed my pick on this fight. I picked Kay Hansen. I thought she would get a submission off of her back. And that's what she was looking to do in this fight. And it didn't matter because Jazz Davicius' submission defense held up. And she landed devastating ground and pound in on the feet. It was fairly even, but Jazz Davicius did outwork her in the end. The third round was pretty rough for her, let's be honest. But the first two rounds were just very definitive, in my opinion. And it secured the fight for Jazz Davicius, who really needs this win, considering she's already 30 and she doesn't have a ton of experience. So I feel like she definitely needs to get the ball rolling compared to Kay Hansen, who's just 22, I believe. So Kay Hansen has a ton of time to learn and improve from this, but Jazz Davicius needed this win, and she got it and in fairly impressive fashion here.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to be very harsh here, but as you were talking about Kay Hansen, she's 22, she's got time to learn, but I feel like it's got to be outside the UFC where she's going to have to learn and then come back. I feel like coming into the UFC at the time she did, very young, very inexperienced. She's had her moments, but she's lost her, these top women in her career. We talk about, the likes of Eric Blanchfield, two names that are skipping my head at the moment.
Corey McKenna, which in my opinion, she actually won that fight.
And then I believe there might be another one. Was it Arnie? No, was it Lipsky? I thought
she fought Jinyu Frey and armbarred her in the first round. I remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't, but I can't really remember off the top of my head. But yeah, maybe outside the UFC, gain some experience, and then we're seeing people get cut and come back with Moreno. Look what's happened to him. But not necessarily get cut, but just take yourself elsewhere, learn the fight game a little bit more, than come back. You don't want to see the same situation with Paige VanZant. We don't want to see that in that route. We want to see her to go to the top of the division and not get rushed too quick. And I feel like a good learning process outside the UFC would be needed for Kay Hansen. But a fantastic performance from I'm really bad at names, Oscar. How do I say that one?
Yeah, this name is not pronounced at all how it looks. So ignore the spelling. It's Jazz Davicius.
Jazz Davicius. Okay. Yeah. Well, there we go. Fantastic performance from Jazz Davicius. Really set the line for the rest of the card. And then Demopoulos getting that submission win is a fantastic way to set the rest of the card as well. And Frivola, Oscar, they put on an absolutely amazing performance. Tony Gravely doing what he does best. And then obviously we had Mandalena absolutely starting Peter Rodriguez, and then Henry putting on an absolutely showtime performance, upsetting the odds over there. And then we had Morales, getting that knockout in the round one against Giles. And then Said Nurmagomedov putting on a fantastic performance, stapling his name at the top 15. And then we had Andre Fiallo coming up short against Michel Piero. Michel Piero just doing what he does best and mixing it all together. And then Davison Figueiredo scraping a close win over Moreno. It was definitely a close one. But we're going to see a full fight. And then at the top of the main card, the UFC champion, heavyweight champion, Ngannou. upsets his probably the biggest test that we'll ever see in his MMA career because it's over now.
Man, what a card it was. You really put the cherry on top of the sundae there. And there's a lot of interesting news stories right now in the MMA space. We just had the PFL re-signed with ESPN, and what? I'll fight Paige's boyfriend for her hand in marriage. It's not her boyfriend. They tied the knot. Mr. Vanderford is indeed her husband. And when he actually talked to both of them, I don't think there's any wiggle room for you to beat Mr. Vanderford. Vanderford is actually fighting Gegard Mousasi for the title next year, and that transitions us perfectly over to our Bellator 273 preview. We got Bader versus Moldavsky at the top of the card. This is going to be a really cool one. There's no UFC fights this weekend, so I'll definitely watch this one for sure.
Yeah, as you mentioned there, we got Brown Bader versus Morovsky at the top of the card. We got Benson Henderson. You probably know his name in the co-main event against Mamedov, and then we got Henry Corrales against Aiden Lee, one of my own, over there fighting in where is it? Where's the fight? I can't remember. It might be in.
I feel like it's in something tells me it's in Arizona. Is it in Arizona?
There we go. I'm not too sure. And then we got Sabah Hamasi, who's always an entertaining fight against Jalen Willis. And then we've got Darren Caldwell versus a UFC veteran in Barzola. Got cut from the UFC. Now looks to take on Caldwell. Got Sadawad versus Gonzalez. And we got what's his name? Dalton Roster. Fantastic prospect over there in Bellator. So definitely watch out for that one. The rest of the card is the prospects coming up, but we're going to talk about the main event, Ryan Bader versus Morovsky. We talked about this before we went on air, and I think we're both in agreement that Morovsky takes this one.
Yeah. Ryan Bader, I don't think he's the fighter he once was. He's 1-2 in his last 3. And in my personal opinion, I don't think he should have gone back to light heavyweight. I feel like that's not a good cut for him anymore, especially after he looks so comfortable and powerful at heavyweight. But he took some damage. He took some real damage in those fights. And now he's going back up to heavyweight where the guys hit harder. And he's fighting an absolute killer in Moldavsky and a Fedor Emelianenko protege. I feel like this is not Bader's time anymore. And I feel like Moldavsky, the interim champion, I feel like he's going to starch him in round 2. I really feel that. Bader, maybe he gets a couple takedowns to mix things up, but honestly, I feel like a Moldavsky cracks him sooner than later. Moldavsky certainly hits harder than Corey Anderson, which Corey Anderson, he put away Bader in very quick fashion last time. I feel like Moldavsky, he's got all the chops to put away Bader here.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. Mine was, if Moldavsky wins this one, it's going to be early in the first or the second round. I got to say with Bader as well, he's not always had the best gas tank either. So slowing down in the later rounds as well is definitely a possibility. But I see Moldavsky getting this one done early. I think it's the first round, second round, a TKO win or a KO win for Moldavsky. And a unification. It's crazy to think because 3 fights ago, 2 fights ago, Bader was the light heavyweight champion and the heavyweight champion. He was on top of the world. Now he's potentially going to lose both his belts.
Yeah, it's been a tough couple fights for Ryan Bader, but that's what tends to happen when you turn 38. So Moldavsky, even if he doesn't get a knockout here, I still think he can win by decision here. Moldavsky is one of the rare heavyweights who doesn't rely on finishes. He can definitely outpoint you. He outpointed Roy Nelson. He outpointed Tim Johnson, and I think if he doesn't knock out Bader, he can comfortably outpoint him here. But I actually think he does get a knockout here because he's got legit power in his hands. And
his
Bader's
last TKO win
shot like he used to.
Yeah, 100%. His last KO TKO win was back in 2018 against Ernest James. But yeah, as you mentioned there, since then he can go to a decision. It's his in his last fight against Tim Johnson. That was for the interim belt, and he went 5 rounds. So that was probably a valuable experience for him. And I feel like this is probably going to go. If it doesn't get ended in the first 2 rounds, it's going to go to decision. And I think Moldavsky takes it either way. I feel like we're going to see a lopsided fight. I feel like Moldavsky is going to maybe show that Ryan Bader's not at the level that he used to be anymore.
Yeah, it's tough to see these legends fall because Bader, don't be mistaken, he's a legend. He left the UFC off of the knockout allure too. He's got real quality wins, but I feel like he's on the decline right
Yeah,
now.
two
And
legends.
we'll move on to the co-main event. Unfortunately, somebody else that appears to be on the decline is Benson Henderson. Got such a legend. Beat Frank Yeager twice back in the day. Uh,
This guy used to fight with a toothpick. A toothpick.
Yeah,
What?
yeah. This guy's such a legend. So many quality wins. He went up to welterweight. That didn't work out. Now he's back at lightweight, fighting an absolute murderer in Islam Mamedov. I feel like this is a good fight for Mamedov. Quite honestly, Benson Henderson is on the decline here, and Mamedov's the better wrestler here. It's pretty safe for me to assume that Mamedov gets enough control time with the takedowns over 15 minutes to get a unanimous decision victory here. And it's going to be pretty sad. It might remind you a little bit of the Tony Ferguson versus the Neil Darius fight where your hero's just down there, just can't get up. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, 100%. I got to agree with you. And as we talked about Ryan Bader losing, and then we're going to see Benson Henderson lose as well. So it's not going to be a good day to see, legends that we've seen in the past. But obviously, Benson Henderson is a bigger legend. He's done so much in the sport of MMA. You talked about their Frank Edgar fights, fighting with a toothpick. What a crazy SOB, man. Honestly, fighting with a toothpick in an MMA fight. This guy just did not give any shit. So it's incredible. What a fantastic guy. When he does hang it up, he will be remembered as one of the toughest fighters inside MMA. But yeah, I think his time is gone now. And as you were talking about, Islam Mamedov is a fantastic fighter. His wrestling is incredible, and definitely I feel like a ground and pound in the second round is going to be the fate for Benson Henderson.
Yeah, Islam Mamedov has not lost since 2009, and that was his second pro MMA fight. Since then, he's not lost, and he's gotten wins over guys like Brent Primus, who beat Michael Chandler, and Nathan Schultz, the former PFL champion for lightweight. This guy's the real deal. I think he maybe has a future as a champion in Bellator. Yeah, he's a real deal. And Benson Henderson, as I mentioned, he's on the decline. It's really unfortunate, but I think this is Mamedov's time to shine.
Benson Henderson's last win inside the MMA was against Miles Jury back in 2019, a former UFC fighter as well. So, he's on a 3-fight losing streak. Lost against Michael Chandler, got knocked out. Lost against Jason Jackson with that the step up to welterweight, and then lost against Brent Primus in his last one. So, a must win for Benson Henderson. If he doesn't win this one, it could potentially be the last time we see him inside any cage.
I have to go charge my computer real quick. I'll make sure to mute myself, but in the meantime, you can tell the people about Canales versus Lee.
100%. I'll tell him. Aiden Lee, my home country, going over there in the States and fighting Henry Corrales. It's going to be a good one. A tough matchup for both fighters. I'm excited to see this one go down. Henry Corrales is a dog. He's a fire. And Aiden Lee, he's got fantastic striking. He's nice. He's long. And he's definitely got some good ground game as well. If you've seen his last fight, went over to a Russian, submitted a Russian. Not many fighters can say that. But Aiden Lee, man, when he's working, putting it all together, he's very tricky for everyone. But he struggled in the past against Aaron Pico, and I can't off the top of my head. He's he's been inconsistent in his career, hence them 5 losses. But you'd like to see him, make a little run at the featherweight division in Bellator. Henry Corrales is no gimme. This is definitely a tough matchup for Lee, but I'd like to see him get it done. He's been on the podcast before. He's a nice guy, very, very genuine, and hopefully gets it done against Henry Corrales. The rest of the card is not the most stacked. So we've got Jason Willis, I can't remember his first name actually. Is it Jaleen? Yeah, Jaleen Willis. There you go. Wrestling against Sabah Humasi. And then we got Darren Caldwell, former former Bellator champion. Former Bellator champion, fought over in Ryzen as well against Eric Barzola, who also used to fight inside the UFC. Definitely a good matchup for both fighters. Darren Caldwell not been on the best streak of late. Went over to Sanford MMA to try his luck over there. And in his last fight, when he debuted under Sanford MMA, didn't go his way either. But you'd like to see him get back into the mix over there. A fantastic fighter. When his wrestling is incredible. When he mixes it all up, he could definitely probably be one of the best fighters in the world. But other than that, the card's good. You've only got about 3 or 4 main card fights. We'll talk about the rest. We got obviously got Dalton Rosser as well. He's a good prospect to watch over there in Bellator. Definitely keep eyes on him. But I'll talk about Henry Corrales versus Aiden Lee. I talked about how it's a tricky matchup for both fighters. Aiden Lee, he's nice and long. His striking's good. If he keeps the range, if he keeps the fight at range, it's going to be his fight. But he's also got a tricky submission game. And Henry Corrales, he's a veteran. He's been inside Bellator for ages, and it's no gimme.
Yeah, Aiden Lee, we've already interviewed him on the show. Really well-rounded guy. I feel like he's definitely on the rise here. Doesn't have the prettiest record, but don't let that fool you. Aiden Lee, I think I don't feel like he's completely outmatched anyone in this fight. I do think he has the slightly higher output here. I do think he can get a split decision here win, but it's not going to be easy. Corrales is in the red corner for a reason. The guy's much more established than Lee, but call me a homer, but I'll pick Lee win by decision here.
Yeah, that's also my pick. Definitely want to see Aiden Lee get it done over there in America. And then we got Sabahu Masi versus Jalen Willis. Jalen Willis, I think he's a former LFA champion. And Sabahu Masi used to fight in the UFC. You might remember his knockout loss against Abdul Razak Al-Hamansan.
Yeah, the 2 fights they had. The first fight, controversial ending, so they ran it back, and no doubts were left when Abdul Razak fought him the second time around. But this time around, he's fighting Willis. And Sabah Homasi, there's no secret about how hard this guy hits. You just have to see that Paul Daly fight, one of the best Bellator fights of last year. And I feel like he gets a second round KO here against Willis. I got to agree. I feel like we'll see an exciting finish from Sabah Homasi.
100%, I agree. And then we'll talk about the Darren Caldwell, because we've got another card as well to talk about. And I'm pretty sure you're aware of it as well.
Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. Sure.
As soon as I say it, you'll be like, oh my God.
All right, go ahead.
So we've got Eagle FC as well this weekend.
Oh, yeah. I'm all in on Eagle FC, honestly. Hopefully their production is fairly good, or up to par with Bellator PFL. This is actually free to watch for anybody. All you have to do is go to eaglefc.com, I believe.
Look at that main event. Wow.
Free.
Look at the co-main event. Oh my days.
Main event is Taran Spong against Sergey Karatanov. Co-main event is the return of Rashad Evans against Gabriel Checo. You have Ray Borg on the card, Cody Gibson. This is a really good card. You actually have one of the Njokani brothers on this card. I really
Jorgen De Castro.
Jorgen De Castro.
Wow.
I feel like Khabib went out of his way to get former UFC guys or just high level talent overall on this.
Then we got an AKA guy, his former team, former teammate Sean Bunch at the bottom of the card as well.
Oh, you also got Miles Hunsinger on the card, former Contender Series fighter. This is a really good way for Eagle FC to introduce themselves as one of the top 5 promotions, in my opinion, in the game, if they perform well with this card.
Yeah, that main event is, and the main event and the co-main event, and we'll talk about, and then we'll touch up on the rest of the fights. But Taran Spong versus Sergey Karatanov, boxers in their own right. Sergey Karatanov had boxing fights. Taran Spong had kickboxing and boxing fights. He's 14-0 in boxing, and he was scheduled to fight Alexander Usyk until he tested positive for a steroid, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But yeah, so he's been out for a very long while. I think his last fight might have been 2019, 2020, off the top of my head. But his last fight in MMA, I can't even remember when that was.
Honestly, I don't remember when it was. Taran Spong, there's no secret about his extensive history in combat sports, not just boxing, but kickboxing. The guy has very few losses across the board and hits like a truck. So when I heard he was fighting Antonio Bigfoot Silva on this card, I was scared for Bigfoot's health. But now he's fighting a much more competent opponent, Karatanov. But at the end of the day, I still think Spong starches him in the first round. The guy has lethal power in his hands and his feet.
His last MMA fight was in 2013, World Series of Fighting number 4. Wow.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah, but as we talked about, his boxing, his kickboxing, he lost in his kickboxing. He lost against the best. He lost against Gokhan Saki, and then boxing. He was all the way up there to fight the best in the world. He was a contender in that cruiserweight division. He was going to fight. He was going to fight Alexander Usyk in the heavyweight division. For when Usyk was stepping up, Usyk was going to bring himself up naturally. He was going to fight Tyrone Spong. That could have been a dangerous matchup for Alexander Usyk, but we never saw it happen. That was scheduled to happen in 2019, as I said. So his last fight was in 2019. So he's been out the cage or any sort of cage for a long while. But there's one thing that we can guarantee with Tyrone Spong: he kicks like a mule and he punches like a mule.
Yeah. Both guys are gonna come in here and swing. Sergey Karatanov's fight against Congo.
Roy Nelson?
That was absolutely wild. His one-time fight with Bellator, that was just amazing. And it ended with Karatanov getting submitted. I don't think he has to worry about that against Spong here. And I believe that Spong he finds his target with his hands and puts him away.
I got to agree with you. Sergey Karatanov has been around for such a very long time. He fought in Pride, made his MMA debut back in 2000. Wow, it's incredible. But another veteran we get to talk about as well is Rashad Evans against Gabriel Checo in the co-main event. When it got announced that Rashad Evans was coming back, I went, no, let's not do this, Rashad. Your time is gone. Your time has passed. Maybe he missed the game. It's for a little bit of fun, but still, I don't want him to get seriously hurt.
Yeah, Gabriel Checo is the real deal. This guy's a monster grappler, man. There's a reason that he was in a grappling match in submission argue round against Mason Fowler. They're not going to book Mason Fowler against guys that aren't high level because Mason Fowler is the champion of submission underground. This guy fought him, and he actually he grappled him, and they actually went to overtime, and then he lost by face crank. But besides that, he's beaten Danilo Marquez, Philip Rowe, Ellenberger, Vanderford in grappling. And a lot of those are actually submissions. They're not just points, winning by points. Gabriel Checo is the real deal when it comes to grappling. And BJJ, I feel like Rashad Evans is going to go for a takedown. And I feel like Gabriel can get something off of his back. I really think so. Rashad Evans is simply over the hill at this point. He's 43, I believe, and he was on a 5-fight losing streak when he retired from the UFC. I feel like Rashad simply has no business competing at this point. He's always going to have the edge, but I don't think he's going to win against high-level competition, which I believe Gabriel is.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I see it not ending well for Rashad Evans, but I'd love to see it happen another way. I'd love to see Rashad Evans get it done. Don't get me wrong. That would be a really good feel-good story of Rashad getting it done. A real legend in the making. Well, definitely he's definitely a future Hall of Famer inside the UFC.
Yeah, Gabriel, the area where he struggled in MMA in particular. So I was talking about his grappling history. It's his striking. He's not the most durable guy, and he can definitely get outstruck in spots, which that's I believe that's Rashad Evans' path to victory. And I don't think Rashad has the hand speed that he used to catch Gabriel. I think Gabriel gets it to the ground where he wants it, and he finds a submission in the second round.
Yeah, he lost against Ian Heinisch, Jay Collier. Jordan Wright, a guy that we've talked about intensively on this show. But yeah, good to see Rashad Evans back fighting, but not when I wanted it to happen. He's 42 years of age. Definitely shouldn't be coming back. But we talked about the rest of the card. UFC, man, this is a fantastic card. A very good way to put himself in the map in the American audience. Definitely, we've got Ray Borg versus Cody Gibson. Wow, what a fight! Joe Howard versus Ramazav Kumaradov.
Madoff. Yeah.
There we go.
Ramazan actually was Ramazan. He lost to Jordan Wright on the Contender Series, and then they brought him in on short notice to fight Alex Cowboy Oliveira. But Ramazan's weight cut didn't go well, so he didn't get the fight, done, so they just cut him right then. And that's a really unfortunate situation for Ramazan. So maybe he can get back on the UFC's radar with that. Well, never mind. He actually beat Jordan on the Contender Series, but he did not get a contract because it wasn't exactly the most exciting win. So he's still undefeated, still could get in the UFC.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. That 9-0, that's definitely a pretty record. As you mentioned there, meant to fight Alex Cowboy Oliveira, but since then he has fought. So glad to see that go well. Then we got Magomed Daliv against Anthony. Oh my God,
And
Anthony.
Jokani. And Jokani's a UFC vet. This guy, he also has a brother that is about to debut in the UFC as well against Marc-Andre Barrett.
Chady, there we go.
Yeah. Then Jokani's are really great at striking. But the problem is he's fighting Magomed Daliv, and I believe Daliv's going to grind him out here, quite obviously, in my opinion.
Yeah, but the rest of the card, yeah, we've got Yorgan Dekrashin as well, making his appearance at Eagle FC. Had one fight outside of UFC since getting cut, and I believe that was with CES.
Yeah, I believe so. Yorgan De Castro, if you see his fight with Justin Tafa, it's kind of all you need to know about the guy. The guy's straight up hits like a truck. Is he going to fight well for 15 minutes? No, not really, but there's always the looming threat of a knockout when you're fighting him.
Yeah, I understand. That knockout loss against Jared Danho, it just exploded out of nowhere. No one saw it coming, but he's got power in his hands. But he just needs to, as you mentioned, is he going to fight well for 15 minutes? We don't know. And this is a good opportunity for him to get himself back on the map. A little bit of a run going. He's on a 1-fight win streak, but I'd like to see him, put a little bit of run, get back inside the UFC. He's definitely a good fighter. He's entertaining in his fights. But yeah, we'll see what happens. As you talked about there, Miles Hunsinger versus DeMarcus Jackson. A few Sanford MMA fighters on this card, and be interested to see how Miles Hunsinger gets on.
I feel like one of the most overseen fighters on this entire card is Loik Raidzadavov from the PFL. This guy just was in the PFL, and he fought in the finals against Roche Manfio. I feel like this guy should be way higher on the card because this guy was just a PFL finalist in the lightweight division, which is very competitive in the PFL. It's
interesting to see that
low on the card.
He's fighting. I would have presumed he might have got another season in him.
Yeah, me as well. But it appears that Eagle FC has backed up the Brinks truck for high level talent, and there certainly is. As you see with the Tapology rankings here, a lot of these guys are ranked fairly high in their respective divisions. So you have to commend Habib for not just bringing in low-level fighters. This guy really went out of his way to find out high-level competition. In my opinion, this might actually be better than the Bellator card on paper.
Yeah, definitely on paper when you look at the names as well. And then you got Sean Bunch, former Bellator fighter. In his last fight, he fought over in UAE Warriors against Ronnie Sada, who was on the show before that fight. And Ronnie Sada said if he didn't win that fight, he should be fighting in MMA. So it'd be interesting because Sean Bunch won that one. And there's one thing that you know about Sean Bunch is he's coming to wrestle, and he's definitely gonna have to put his wrestling shoes on for this one because that's definitely what he's gonna do. But yeah, this is a fantastic card. I'm definitely looking forward to it. But we've got Bellator and then we've got Eagle FC this weekend. So we haven't got no UFC, but we've got kind of a substitute.
Yeah, we're still getting our fix when it comes to violence, and yeah, it's gonna be pretty entertaining. We have 2 events, and after that, the UFC will scratch our backs once again with Jack Hermanson against Sean Strickland. That's a really fun card, if you ask me. That main event could definitely result in the winner being in line for a title shot at some point. I feel like it's gonna end up going to Sean Strickland by unanimous decision. I feel like if he can avoid the submission attempts on the feet, his output is way higher.
Yeah, 100%. And then quickly before we go, quickly talk about UFC London. A lot of announcements have came out in the past week. Obviously, we saw Tom Aspinall got his fight like cancelled, and then we were like, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
And then it came out that he's headlining against
Yeah,
Alexander
yeah.
Volkov.
Pull up
So
the card right now on Tapology. I want to go through it because you will definitely be there in person. I'm sure you won't miss it for anything. And this will be the UFC's first event in London since, let me think, when was the last time they went to London?
oh
Was
my
it
god,
September 2019?
I
No,
can't,
no,
I
that
can't, I
was,
can't remember.
yeah, but the UFC was actually set to go to the O2 for Woodley versus Edwards. I remember that was the first event canceled as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. And I was so bummed out because I was still holding out hope that it would somehow happen. But it was not meant to be. And I feel like that would have been a catapult opportunity for Leon Edwards at the time, but it did not happen. And the UFC is going to make good on that because they have put together a squad of some of the best fighters in the UK on the planet, and they're for the most part they're all fighting on this card, and
Oh,
it's a really well assembled card. I think you should go to Tapology.
yeah,
They have more of the in the works fights, but yeah, Tom Aspinall versus Volkov is a very interesting matchup. Aspinall, if you listen to any interview this guy's had prior to this week, he's always said, I want to take it slow. I don't even want to fight guys in the top 10 yet. That's why he was fighting Sergey Spivak, Jake Collier. He didn't want to rush it because he saw his fellow teammate Darren Till. He saw how things went when he got rushed a little bit. So he wanted to take it slow, but he did say that opportunities like these are limited. So he went ahead and took it, and he's fighting one of the most established heavyweights in the UFC's roster in Volkov. This guy was a Bellator heavyweight champion a very long time ago, and then he went to the UFC and went on a really good streak. Has a knockout win over the former champion Fabricio Verdum. It's a tough matchup for Tom. This is going to be his first, in my opinion, his first like real tough challenge. Not This is not a guy that I believe he can steamroll here. So I think we'll see a longer fight, and we'll see how Tom deals with the deep waters.
yeah. And Tom Aspinall was very good at striking. We've seen it in the past, but he's looking opposite against Alexander Volkov, who is equally as good at striking as Paddy Pimblett. No, not Paddy. I saw Paddy Pimblett on the screen. What am I talking about? Tom Aspinall. I mean, is equally as good at striking as Tom Aspinall. So this is a fantastic fight, and I believe this might be one of the first few times that Tom Aspinall will be fighting looking up, because Volkov
Yep.
is a very tall guy.
Yeah, that's fair to say. You'll have to wait till the week of March 19th for our preview of this. We'll talk about all these fights, but it's really cool to see Mike Grundy, Jack Shore, Paddy
Johnny
Pimblett.
Nelson.
Yeah, Arnold Allen. Arnold Allen versus Dan Hooker is going to be a banger. I really think this is the fight where we learn about just how good Arnold Allen is. It's Dan Hooker's return to featherweight. That's a fantastic fight. The return of Gunnar Nelson. Which Gunnar Nelson, I feel like a lot of people forgot about this guy. He was actually main eventing cards back in the day. He was always in the like the top 10 mix. In fact, he had a split decision loss to Leon Edwards. The big swing point in that fight was Leon Edwards getting the knockdown. But besides that, it was a very competitive fight, and Leon is on the cusp of the title shot. So Gunnar Nelson should not be forgotten at this point. Marlon McCann on the card, Muhammad Mahayev, Corey McKenna, Jake Hadley, and also our guy Nathaniel Wood, most likely going to be a guest on this program at some point, and it should be a good time.
100%. I can't wait, and a fantastic card, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I know it's gonna not disappoint, but that show is for a different time, for a different time, different show. So it's been an absolute fantastic show, hasn't it, Oscar?
Yeah, it sure has. And we have new outro music for you guys. So don't be asking us in the comments, why are you playing music in the background? It's planned. And this is not somebody somebody in the house just play music. This is part of the programming. It's the way to send us out. And yeah, I really think that you should not miss these fights. They're not UFC fights. They're still pretty high-level fights, and I think we'll see some exciting finishes in the mix.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna have to try and pick the right music. I don't know whether this is the right one, but we're gonna go with this one. It sounds good. It's a little good.
We're learning on the job, people. We're learning on the job, and let's wrap it up right now.
It might be this one. How about this one? No.
We might have to let the fans decide on Instagram or something like that. Let us know what they think is best. Probably put up an Instagram poll on the story. We'll see.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we'll definitely put an Instagram poll on this one. But there goes the intro music, outro music. It's been a good episode. I enjoyed every minute of it. Talking about UFC 270, and obviously talking about Bellator and Eagle FC happening this weekend. And then that's all we've got for you today. Any last words, Oscar, before we send it off?
Yeah, just make sure to enjoy the fights.
100%. Do what Oscar said. Make sure you enjoy the fights. Definitely lots to recap on. But I feel like next week's episode is going to be a banger when we get to talk about Bellator, Eagle FC, and then talk about the UFC upcoming. So thank you very much for joining me, and we'll see you next week with an incredible show as well.